Yeah, I can't.
Okay, here we go. Oh,
All right, we're going to get started here real soon.
yep,
Let the room fill up.
yep. It's another Thursday. I was like I looked at the attendee for a second. I was like, oh, there's one person here. Wow.
Yeah, it's like, oh,
I was like, all right,
US Open.
it's gonna be
Again, we can blame it on the US Open. It has nothing to do with us.
yeah, it's you all had to tune in for the actual US Open.
We found out Cassandra was going to be here again, so nobody
Yeah.
showed up.
Yeah, no, we're gonna get started.
Our biggest draw is Cassandra.
Started in a second. If you came here to draw tennis players, tennis athletes, do you call them players, John?
Yeah, tennis players.
Yeah. We're gonna get started in a few minutes. So you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and just start the video now.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, get it going.
All right.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Illustration Isolation. And we have no idea what episode it is. We're on like
177.
one. Really?
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So yep.
All right. Well, tonight on episode 177, we are drawing the US Open. US Open qualifiers started 10 or 12 days ago. And Timmy asked this question this morning, why is it called an open? And it's an open because amateurs can qualify to play in it. And so they have a qualifying rounds at the beginning. You have to play certain tournaments to even get to the qualifying. And then if you make it through the qualifying, you get in the main draw, and works the same way as the US Open for golf also. So anybody can get into the US Open, assuming you can win a bunch of tennis matches. And so one of the, I guess, most exciting parts about this year of the US Open is that, or most notable parts, is that Serena Williams is kind of announced this is her last hurrah. And she is the most in the modern era. Margaret Court actually has more slams, but in the modern era, she's the most winning tennis player, men or women. And she has 23 Grand Slams. And it was really kind of interesting. She beat number 2 in the world 2 nights ago, or I guess last night. And she wasn't expected to win the match, and it was pretty exciting. So tonight we are drawing. Well, we'll start with Rafael Nadal. Nadal has the most Grand Slams of any male tennis player that ever played. He has one more than Roger Federer and one more than Djokovic. And interesting enough, Djokovic's not playing because he's refuses to get vaccinated. And he missed out on the Australian Open because he refused to get vaccinated. And that's a pretty strong commitment. I don't know if it's quite there with Ali saying I'm not going to war, but it is pretty effective.
That's a pretty heavy comparison.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also missing out, he's not getting drawn. Poor guy.
That's right. He said we're not going to draw him. And he was to me, he was like, because I'm a huge Roger Federer fan, he was like Roger's nemesis. And Roger came, Roger, Federer, Rafael Nadal, and Djokovic are the big, what's called the big three, and the 3 most winning men's tennis players of all time. It was a huge thing when they went beyond Pete Sampras, when Federer went beyond Pete Sampras's 14 Grand Slams. And so it's up to the young guys to take over and knock them off their pedestal. And it's starting to happen, but not yet. A lot of news about Serena retiring, but her sister is pretty much going to retire also, and was one of my favorite tennis players of all time. One of the most graceful, elegant athletes I've ever seen. She has 7 Grand Slams to her name, which is amazing. But her little sister, Serena, has 23 Grand Slams, and kind of like took over the Williams family business, I should say. And so we're going to do the last pose. I left it all up to Serena. You could do the pose, kind of the really graceful pose, or you could do the very aggressive celebration and the motivating fist pump, which a lot of, drawing tennis players, there's a lot of awkwardness on facial expression. I mean, they get into these really like almost contortionist, unbelievable poses, and their face is contorted, and sometimes it's not great to draw, and the lighting's got to be right. But this is pretty interesting. And anyway, so this is our 40-minute pose at the end. You could do either Serena pose or do both of them if you like. In between, please post your drawings to #illustration_isolation on Instagram. And then we always look through everything at the end. And it's a kick. We go through every drawing, and it's so much fun to see all the different interpretations in the drawings that have been done in here. So my spiel is over. I hope you're ready to start drawing. We're going to start with Mr. Nadal. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen, Timmy, and we'll get started.
All right. I just want everybody to know John doesn't know anything about tennis. I told him we should do the US Open. I said, let's do the US Open. And he said, I don't know anything about tennis. I'm just going to spend the rest of this week learning. Yeah.
He's like, what's open?
John is a tennis aficionado. John, do you think you could add color commentary to like a live game?
No.
Like you could.
I think you could.
I could talk about it, but I'm not history. I'm not really terrific on it. I have my players I like a lot. I had to check some of the facts. I thought Serena that Venus had won 9 Grand Slams. She'd only won 7. So I was wrong in a couple of areas.
Yeah.
But I knew exactly. I could tell you all about Djokovic and Nadal and Federer.
Well, everybody, I just want to let you know I shared a link in the chat to our Discord. So if you want to join us for drawing, if you want to join us for the conversation, use the chat, ask questions, be part of the convo tonight. Please feel free to follow that. If you don't get Discord, you don't want to deal with it, just use the Q&A in Zoom. We don't use the public chat because somebody had to ruin it. But if you join Discord, in a couple of minutes, I will upgrade it. Somebody said, I thought this was about art, not tennis. It's also about patience. It's about being patient and art. We're drawing, don't worry. But please ask questions if you do want the conversation to steer towards art. Other than that, we're probably just going to talk about what we either think is interesting, fun, or helpful.
That's fun. That's a funny first comment. I'll try to bring the art into it. Every artist, one of their struggles, what are you going to draw and paint? And so here we are on episode 177, and trying to find something that's topical, that's interesting for people each time they come in. It's important. And then finding something interesting and good reference. I don't want to do a convention of philosophists or accountants. That doesn't sound exciting to me. So tennis is interesting. It's a good visual. It's a tough visual to draw. I've done a bunch of commission paintings of tennis players, and it's a hard subject matter.
It was a good challenge drawing it earlier today too.
Yeah, this will be a good warm-up.
Well, it was interesting. I hadn't thought about, you were talking earlier about physical, like the level of athleticism for tennis players, comparing it between different sports. And I found that really interesting because I hadn't thought of the level that they have to be at to like how long their matches can go, how fast the balls were going. I thought that was really interesting.
Or how long that,
Mhm.
the amount of stamina versus strength, speed, and then you gotta to even be considered with all that stuff, you have to consider eye to hand coordination. And if they don't have all of that, they're not playing in the US Open.
Eye-hand coordination for artists too.
Absolutely. But it's a little bit
Where your
different.
hands are.
Definitely different.
Much slower target.
It's a little bit slower, and I think it's a little bit more well, tennis is definitely a thinking man or thinking person sport. And artists, if you're drawing, this is one of my lines that my father said to me once while I was drawing. He walked by when I was drawing and he looked at me and kind of smiled and he said, you got to really think while you draw. So it was not a compliment. Let's put it that way.
That feels like a dad comment.
Yeah. We had funny conversation about that this morning. About our dads. People coming up to Timmy and I and saying, "Oh, your dad was such the nicest, sweetest man." And my response was, "You didn't know him very well."
Yeah, he was a lot of things.
But as a dad,
Yeah.
he took being a dad serious, and that's part of it.
My version of that was they were like, your dad he told me he used to say, just always say yes more than no. And I was like, we're talking about different people.
Yeah, you obviously didn't know me.
Yeah.
Looks like Terry Brown just came in the room.
Mr. Brown.
Yay.
I did. I had some challenges with the computer and Zoom. Wanted to know my middle initial and the zip code where I was born, but once I figured those out, they let me in.
Yep.
Yay.
John, you want to do an intro for Terry? It's been a minute since we've had you on the panel, Terry.
Yeah. Terry, besides being just a very interesting, great speaker,
Yeah,
was,
that's
his part of his vitae was he was the director at the New York Society of Illustrators for 25 years. And I think that's close in number, somewhere right in there. We'll call it a quarter century. How about that? And then went on and at the Roosevelt Museum, is that correct also too? For, I don't know how long you were. I don't know how long
Theodore Roosevelt Association. Yeah, it was a museum for
Okay.
Theodore Roosevelt.
And Terry has been a speaker and a teacher and just an all-around supporter of our
Okay,
program.
enough. These people are
All-around
trying to draw.
supporter. That's a fair thing to say about you. You've been
It is.
a really good all-around supporter of our programs, and I love the fact that you care enough to come in here.
Well, it's enjoyable to hear these familiar voices. Week by week, I'm absolutely amazed to see how you draw so quickly and efficiently. And yeah, I know it's all that practice, as people watching will find out. But once you're really good at something like that, it must be a challenge to find something in the drawing that's difficult, and you probably focus on that. I bet Cassandra does.
It just stays challenging. Like, I think as you get better, you just want to capture more. So it stays challenging for me the whole time.
I'm with you, Cassandra.
Yeah.
Some of these poses has just it's just like whipped me, and some of them I'll like, it just feels effortless and it's so wonderful when it comes out, and other ones you just trudge along and count down the minutes to the next pose.
One of the things about drawing in this group and with this group, because there's some very good drawers that draw with us, is it's like they say with athletes, you got to have a short memory. You kind of do in here too, because I've done some things I don't want to remember.
Yeah, have there ever been like paintings or drawings that you've done on a webcam for an event?
Well, that's the part you got to
Were you-
forget, is that you're
I
on
was just,
camera.
well, I was just gonna say where you felt like you like had to take a shower after it. Like,
Yeah, I feel dirty.
Yes.
All of last week.
yeah,
I feel like I could just like, I have a pile of like the rejected that didn't make it, and I'll just plop it down and make everybody feel better about themselves.
yeah. Here's a
I had
question.
about a month of that.
Here's a question from Elena. When you first started drawing, how do you decide between blocking and tone or using lines to get the structure?
I'm trying to see shape totally. I'm
Mhm.
trying to find, and I'm blocking in value at some places, and I'm making notes and marks. Even putting some of the background in is really important to me, because it's defining my shapes even more. And that's why I started putting the background in places. And then I work from the very vague to the specific, and I'll get in and, kind of make sure everything's in the right place before you start noodling and rendering.
Yeah, exactly. And I try to keep it light, like midtones, while I'm figuring it out, so that if it's not right, it's easy to kind of adjust as I'm figuring out where things belong.
Good point. Because, what I do is I'm drawing in pastel on mid-tone paper here, and I will kind of block things in, but then I'll rub everything together and blend it all together, just to give me a vague idea of structure, like an underpainting for an oil painting. And then I can go back in and be more precise with things.
Which is kind of like a nice safety net. It gives you room to not have it all immediately figured out.
John,
Yeah.
you used a great phrase there, the vague to the specific.
Yep.
I think people could understand kind of what that means. Does there come a time when you're drawing a figure and you're getting the things blocked in, and then all of a sudden you realize, if I do these two marks, bam, it's specific.
It really comes, yeah. And then you, again, especially, and this is almost pure profile. It's a little bit turned. You can see, either side of his mouth there, but it's almost pure profile. And if you don't hit that in a profile, if you don't get that, it is so awkward. And so, getting those things right are, before you make a commitment, you really want to know where you're going. And I think what Terry was saying, it's like, there's a point in a drawing for me that all of a sudden you just kind of go, I got it. Everything's in the right place. I can go forward and start finishing it.
That's true.
Sometimes things are in the wrong place, but they're just not quite wrong enough. They're still sort of it's not an exact, but it's also not bad either.
Yeah, but you can some of my favorite drawers distort a lot, and distortion can be phenomenal, but it's still got to be informed properly. And so, things can be slightly off, and if you inform it, and that's what makes caricature work so well. If you inform it well, it's believable. You can sell it. That's why somebody like Terry, I know who Philip Burke is, and did some of the wildest, most successful portraits, did tons of work for Rolling Stone and all the editorials. And, he would put an ear so far out of place, or, the nose, but somehow he got the essence of what makes that person look like that person. And he informed it well enough that you could recognize who it was.
Like Al Hirschfield. I mean, his caricatures blew my mind.
And Philip Burke, when he first became professional, and Rolling Stone and magazines like that were giving him assignments. He was still delivering the original art. And several of those pieces got into the Society's annual show where the original art is exhibited, and they were gigantic.
Yeah,
You
they're
might
big.
do a little spot caricature, but of Leslie West of Mountain, and all of a sudden the painting comes in and it's 3 feet by 7 feet. And you might ask
Really?
him, why waste all that canvas and art stuff on a modest paying job? And I didn't ask him, but I imagine you would just say, I had to. I just had to.
Everybody, this is we've been drawing for 10 minutes, so this is the 10-minute warning.
Oh, thank goodness. I was scared you were going to say we had less time than that.
Yeah, I was too.
As if you follow the time constraints, John.
Oh, come on.
Well, I was gonna say, anybody who's complaining about us drawing sports tonight, I was thinking about this. Do you know how many times we've made John draw pirates and like Game of Thrones characters?
Yeah.
For him to just get to draw his tennis players just one time, you know? He's earned this.
I agree.
But you folks drawing, after a while, do you even know what the subject is that you're drawing? Do you just make them into a body with certain shapes and angles?
We were joking. A lot of the poses of the tennis players made us think of like gladiators.
Yeah,
Oh,
we did. We did a pose this morning that all you had to do was take the racket out and put a sword in.
Yeah.
Well, even Nadal here.
Yeah, I was gonna say this one is very gladiator-esque.
Yeah. Nothing against Brad Pitt. I mean, nobody looks more physical than him, but this is the real deal right here. I mean,
Yeah.
this is a functional fitness. It came to him the hard way.
I think Brad Pitt's is functional.
No,
but
his
but
is
in a
aesthetic.
different- In a different
Yeah, it's
way.
functional in a different way. Yeah, you're
It's
right.
functional in that it's pretty.
Yeah,
Yeah, in a pretty way.
yeah. They it's interesting. A lot of the Spanish, and the men's players, a lot of them practice with their shirts off. Even like their warm-ups at the US Open, they're out hitting with their shirts off. And you'll see some fit dudes, to say the least, incredibly fit, and women too, but they're playing with their shirt on. But Timmy, you told the great story of the Brad Pitt story, the Brad Pitt and
Oh, is it where they were
on
I heard
Clooney.
George Clooney. Yeah, I heard an interview with George Clooney on Mark Maron. He was talking about it was after Ocean's 11. He's like, everybody in the film is beautiful. It's like cast beautifully because we're all on a yacht and the paparazzi circles it. And it's the whole cast. They find out that the whole cast is on this yacht, like off the coast of, like in the Mediterranean. And there are boats and like cameras with long lenses. He goes, so we kind of go up to the top of the boat to like ham it up. And we're in vacation mode. So everybody's got their shirts off. And he goes, and I just knew Brad Pitt was there. He goes, I put my shirt on. And I came over. He goes, and I go over to Damon. I go, what are you doing, man? Put your shirt on. You look like an idiot next to him. Yeah.
I thought of that story so many times.
I love it.
Matt Damon's a great looking guy, it's just
Oh, I dealt with that in college. I was friends with a lot of basketball players, and I don't think I'm a short person, but I was it made me I became a short person, like a very short person.
Welcome to my world.
Everyone, all my shortest friend, my close friend that I was like, yeah, I had 3 very close friends. and the shortest one was 6'4". So you look tiny, always.
What? How tall are you to me?
I'm 5'8". So I'm not like short. I'm like, I would say European average.
You're not Terry Brown tall.
Oh,
I love
Oh.
that as a descriptor.
you know what I'm saying? Aren't they like supposed to be like an inch shorter? Like, because like I think American average height is like 5'9".
Well, if that's your way of telling, then I'm like Hobbit average.
Yeah, it'd be Middle Earth average.
Shire average.
Yeah, not even Middle Earth, Shire average.
'Cause I'm like 5'1 3/4.
Yeah, I could be wrong.
That's what my wife says all the time. I'm 5'1.5". She will not give up that half-inch.
Your wife and I would get along.
Enjoy it while you can. When you get older, if it's in your DNA, you will shrink, as one of my sisters have. When I get my physical done in the fall, and they come back and say, you're 5'11 3/4, I say, go take a break, come back in 10 minutes, I'll be 6 feet. I'll stretch and grab, and I get myself up to 6 feet.
That's fine.
6 feet is the dream.
Yeah.
Growing up, I aspired to be as tall as my father, and he was an inch or two taller than me when I was fully grown, and I was taller than him at the end of his life.
Amen.
We used to it bothered him, which I thought was
Yeah. Well,
Come
my
on,
two
you
sons
gotta
are
give
bigger
me
than
something.
I was obsessed with height when I was little, like obsessed with it. I so bad, and also basketball was my favorite sport. So it was a curse.
Sorry about that, Timmy.
Yeah, it was that got ripped out of my hands pretty fast.
Yeah. Well, you know, Timmy, it's true. In other sports, you see athletes against other athletes. So the linemen are bigger than the receivers, whatever, in football.
Yeah.
In tennis, they're on opposite sides of the court. You never see them together until it's over. And I kind of wait sometimes to see them shake hands and say, my God, he's 3 inches taller than he is, or she is bigger than, and how thick they might be, because you don't see that when they're actually playing.
Do the bigger players, is it always favored, the taller players? Are they always favored?
Well,
John,
usually with a serve they are.
Yeah.
But it's become really common that tennis players are much larger people now.
Yeah.
There's no Michael Changs in the world anymore, who was an American who was probably 5'6" and maybe 5'7", and was a top 10 player, top 5 player for a while. That doesn't happen anymore. There's, the average tennis player on the men's tour is 6'3" probably, and they go up to John Isner's 6'10".
Oh man,
Medvedev 6'6". So many of them that are really.
Yeah, once you get above 6'5", of the people in my life have been haunted by it. They just say it becomes every conversation with the new person you meet. I have a friend who's 6'8", and he's just like, you just can't get away from it. Everybody's like, wow, you're so tall. Like when they meet him.
Yeah. I have a friend that's 6'7", and they're always like, did you play basketball? And he didn't. He's just like, no.
Yeah, and it's just, yeah. Now the funny thing, his name is Luke, and Luke moved to Banff, Canada, and he had never gone skiing, and he was with my brother, who my brother's a tiny guy. He's like built like a ballerina, and they took a ski lift up this mountain, and Luke had never gone skiing before. They go all the way up. They're up at the top, and you don't realize how terrifying skiing would be if you're 6'7". And he was horrified because he said it felt like he was going to fall off the mountain. And so he laid down and just slid down the mountain on his back.
Oh,
But yeah,
embarrassing.
yeah, I know, right? But yeah, Yeah, so I guess I'm okay with being 5'8".
I'm always, I have a couple of friends that are tall that I've traveled with, and I tell you, I always appreciate it when you get on an airplane. Carrie knows what I'm talking about,
Amen.
especially with the knees, right?
Yeah, a lot of my height's in my legs. And yeah, those seats get smaller and smaller every year.
Everybody's fighting, all the tall guys are fighting over the exit row seats.
I know that sounds like a plus, John, and it is for the length. But if you're on a flight for 16 hours from New York to Hong Kong, and you're at that exit and it's not quite sealed as great as it should be, so for 16 hours you have a breeze on you, I would have moved one back. I would have sold that seat.
That's funny. I never considered that.
Sometimes.
So does anybody have any projects they're working on?
Always.
Any?
Yeah.
What's the big one? What's the big one this week, Cassandra?
I am working on a piece for a show that's called The Birds and the Bees for a gallery down in Charleston. So I'm having fun. I'm working on a big piece of a turkey.
Oh, wow. How did you come across that as an opportunity?
It's a gallery I work with regularly. So when they have group shows, they often invite me in. They're really great.
Oh, that's great.
I am just trying to keep up with gallery work. And that is, that's good. It's fun. I get to do pretty much what I want to do. But a lot of people don't think about it, that once you sell work at a gallery, how much effort the gallery puts in it, and you're basically renting the walls from them. And
Really?
they want you to produce. They made an investment in you. They invest in their marketing and their time and their space on the wall. And I got a tongue lashing this afternoon. I need more pieces. At the same time, it was positive, but it's also we need more art. And
I might have to get the gallery's phone number because we're gonna be fighting for your time. Yeah, that's funny.
I know Cassandra, you can talk about that a lot. I mean, Cassandra sells a lot of work, and you're working with these a lot of these different galleries, and you make a commit. You want them, you want to get a gallery to sell work, but then you got to think about their side too. You gotta supply them the inventory.
And you got to have really honest conversations too, because like the Charleston gallery, they sell my work really well. Like I'll spend months doing work for them, and then it'll be sold within weeks, all of it, and which is wonderful. But then I can't immediately supply them with stuff because I have other different gallery show responsibilities. So it's always a bit like, I love working with you. Don't forget about me. I'll get back to that. I promise. I'm trying to make those timelines.
I've got some here. I thought this would be fun. I have some news. I'm gonna read a news and you guys can just give some color commentary on it. All right. Want to buy a Banksy? This building comes with it. The painting known as Swing Girl and Girl on a Swing and the building it adorns are headed to the auction block with the hope that the sale price will reach $30 million.
Oh God.
Tarina Tarantino and Alfonso Campos paid $4 million for the downtown Los Angeles building in 2007. They hope the building, now adorned with the mural, which the mural was placed on it during the making of the documentary Exit Through the Gift Shop. They believe it's going to receive about $30 million at auction.
Wow. What do you want me to say? It's like,
I know.
Good for Banksy.
Well, no, Banksy doesn't get any money.
Banksy, well, wait a second. There's another side of that.
It's a really interesting. I think it's more interesting than you're giving it credit because it's a building. I mean,
Yeah, but it's still good for Banksy because that is, I mean, that's what his work is worth. I don't think there's any shortage of him selling work. So it's establishing some amazing prices.
True. Well, I was just wondering, like, how much original work does he actually sell?
That's a great question.
Yeah, that is a good question.
Because, so much of it is like public statements that he does in secret. So it's got to be complicated to have original pieces for sale that, like, he would obviously have a private broker to handle it for him publicly, but I don't know that I can't think of a time when he was selling it to profit himself.
Yeah, that's a good question.
And what becomes of the physical original art of a Banksy? That mural, is it detachable from the wall? Does it come
Well,
with?
yeah, I guess that's kind of what I think it's really interesting, because like the idea of, so you purchase a building, the building costs $4 million. You're buying the ownership of that building, right? And that makes sense, like, because you can use the services of that building, you have access to that building. You buy a painting that costs $4 million. I understand that you then own that painting. You have the right to place that painting in your home, to have it in a private viewing space. But by purchasing a mural on the side of a building that's like publicly shown to downtown, like, it doesn't change the viewing experience or the access of it in any way. So is the building really worth $40 million or $30 million, right?
And also it's, not protected from the elements because it's outdoors. So that's
Right.
got to complicate value.
But like, Terry, to what you're saying, like, if it could be removed and then installed, then I do start to understand, okay, this is because then the purpose of it can change. But the purpose of it now is free public art, which is great. And, we need more of that,
So if you have free public art, was Banksy paid for the transfer of the ownership of that original art? Was this all on a handshake?
I don't
Somebody
know.
owns that physical art.
I don't know anything about that. I would guess that, like, technically, like Los Angeles, like, if you were to like really get down into the weeds of it, like, technically it's vandalism. And so it's it's whatever the building. Banksy probably doesn't. I don't know. That's a really interesting thing. I would think legally, like, if I vandalized your home, Terry, and
Well, you're the one.
Yeah. So I gave like let's just assume I did like some really cool, thoughtful Banksy-esque thing on the side of your house, Terry. And then I was like, now when you sell your home, Terry, actually you owe me like 10% of the sale.
Okay, I'll put you on the list, but I do want to thank you. When you robbed the home, you took the guns, but you left the cannolis, and they were delicious.
Way to go, Godfather, on it.
I think the building thing is interesting because I don't know that it has a value.
Well, it does bring up
remove it.
It does bring up a good point. Boy, illustration is littered with people who didn't sign contracts, didn't offer contracts, didn't even consider a contract. And the best advice I heard somebody give to, it was actually Fred Woodward, art director of Rolling Stone, had a bunch of young professionals showing their portfolios to him. And he told all of us, said, hey, a lot of you are going to get your start doing a pro bono job, doing something for the local theater or a mural on the side of something temporary or what. So best advice, send them an invoice. You're not going to get paid because you're going to bill them zero, but tell them what rights you're transferring, how much it could have cost, all waived in good spirit, zero. And you have a piece of paper that they have to accept that clarifies that, even if you're doing it for the first thing out of the block as a young artist. I thought that was good advice. And I guess
I've never
Banksy
thought of that.
I used to do that with photo shoots, Terry. And it just really puts into, because I think some of the hardest clients can be the free ones.
I bet. Yeah.
And it really just like, establishes with the really, you're not like shoving it in their face or by any means, and you shouldn't be like inflating your prices, but you are just like, you're acknowledging like this does have a value, and you're being given a favor, or you're being given a donation of some sort,
That has real tangible value.
yeah.
It could be $40 million or $30 million.
Well, there was an artist that was paid in stock from, I believe it was Google.
No, it's Facebook.
Facebook.
Yeah.
Murals, yeah.
Yeah.
And it worked out okay for him.
Yeah, it was like right at the beginning, and it ended up being several $1 million.
Yeah.
I think it was,
Because they didn't have the money to pay for, they didn't want to invest the money and pay him. He accepted stock.
Yeah, Xander just said David, is it
yeah.
Cho?
Yeah. And it was
Yeah, there you
definitely,
go.
it was more than a few million.
Yeah, it was
I
insane.
think it was in the hundreds of millions of dollars that he made off that one mural. Assuming he sold the stock the right time. Hopefully he doesn't have that stock anymore.
Actually, I was a teacher at CCAC when he was a student there.
Really?
Yeah,
That's cool.
he was in, David was in Jeff DeCoster's one of his painting classes, and illustration classes. And David always had, he had, what attitude is a way to say it. Like he was savvy, and
Yeah.
yeah,
He's got a lot of money. So
yeah, I mean, that mural was a smart move. I mean, he did that. He was really, because he's only 46 years old, and he did that. What was that, like 15 years ago or so?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't really come to fruition though for quite a long time, because it wouldn't
Oh.
have been until they went public that he really.
That's the thing. Like, it was probably just when it came up, it was just a simple job. It was just like,
Yeah.
I wonder, was he initially annoyed that he got stock instead of paid? Because it's not like a quick.
No, I think it was a conscious choice.
Or did he know, like, oh yeah, that's cool.
I don't know. I mean, because I think everybody had really high hopes for Facebook, like
Yeah,
just based on the hubris of
I would guess that they were given options.
Oh, Xander knows. Thanks, dude. He said a choice was available to him between being paid in money, or like cash, or receiving stock.
Yeah.
so.
From people that I've met that work in that world, like not in the mural world, but like in Silicon Valley and like in new like media companies, they just go to the companies, they try to get as large a signing bonuses as possible with stock options, and then they hang around for a couple of years to see if it's going to be the blow up company, and then if it's not, they leave. So it's like, it's kind of a mentality and like a way of like a career choice. I think I think any, if you did enough murals like in Silicon Valley, like you'd do fine.
Yeah.
eventually you're gonna hit one.
Yeah, it's like angel investing but with paintings. Yeah.
We're well beyond the first pose.
Oh yeah, we are. This is our long pose, everybody. This was the long one, so we're gonna move on. We just got so into it with Banksy, with my amazing news. That was the news segment, everybody. All right.
Back to the sports page.
Yeah, back to sports. No, so we're moving on to pose 2. The next 2 poses are only going to be 20 minutes, like a strict 20. So please post your work, pose 1 with hashtag illustration isolation and add visualized passage on Instagram. Post it now, don't wait till the end. We're moving on to pose 2,
Yes.
which was Venus, right?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Other than that, one other thing I do want to say is if you're new to Visual Arts Passage or you're new to Illustration Isolation, this is our free public community event. We do host art mentorships. We host them on a semester basis. They're immersive courses that are designed to help you up your skill and build a portfolio to have careers like some of the artists were, some of the illustrators that we've talked about, some of the career options that Cassandra and John have talked about. You get to work with working pros that kind of help you target those goals, whatever your goal might be. But tonight and tomorrow is the last day for our early bird sign up, which is $100 off. So I'm going to drop links to all of this, but if you're interested in having a career in illustration or like entertainment and game arts, whether you're interested in comics or drawing editorial or cartoons, I highly recommend checking it out. We have some of the biggest names right now coming into the program this fall. On the topic of cartoons, we've got Keith Knight joining us. Keith Knight is the co-creator of the Hulu television show Woke. Is also an incredibly accomplished cartoonist, and Woke is very much like his personal story, and it's based on his personal story. We have Terrell Whitlatch, who is an iconic creature designer. Terrell's known for creating oh my gosh, it's slipping me. Very involved with working with George Lucas, The Phantom Menace, Jar Jar Binks. That's what I was trying to think of. And it's just some incredible artists are joining. That's just 2 of the 6 guest speakers we have coming. But Fall 100 is the code. So I'll drop it in the chat. That's all for now. We're going to move on to pose 2. These are tight poses, 20 minutes only.
I still have a copy. Years ago, I met Keith at a comic convention in Oakland, and I still have a copy of his comic, his zine. It was called The K Chronicles.
Oh, that's so cool.
And yeah, he's good friends with a friend of mine who lives here, Bart Cusick, and I saw him just a couple years ago, but he's one of the nicest people I've met in the comics industry. He's a super nice guy, super humble, very, very smart.
So since you're talking about comics, there's a real parallel today for the last 20 years to the era of the pulp magazines, late 20s through the mid 40s. And the artists who did those, I think, are very much like the workabees who do a lot of the comic books, the original sketches and the inkers and the colorers, that whole process very much has parallels. And there's a new book coming out on pulp art. Society of Illustrators is doing a lecture next, I think, Wednesday on Zoom with the author of that book. I'm interested to hear some of the stories, because if you were a pulp artist and you were 19 years old right out of high school, for 10 years you had a paycheck and you were learning how to draw, because you had to. And when the pulps changed or new people came in, you moved over to the magazines and you really had like graduate school with a paycheck. And it's not easy to find for an artist, but when the opportunities go up, I hope it happens in comics even more than it is now.
That sounds awesome.
Thank you, Terry.
When is that lecture again, Terry?
I think it's Wednesday night on Zoom, and they're doing something in person on Friday with the same people. But the Society's got a pretty good collection that does include some pulp art. The reality, if you had a 64-page pulp magazine that came out twice a month, you can do the math on how many pages that is. They didn't save that stuff. Those originals went out the window. The color cover they would save, but the inside black and whites on that cheap pulp new stock didn't. So if any of them survived, it was the artist taking them home at the end of the day, just because they liked a dog they drew in the background. or a tennis player on the sideline. That's,
That's wild to think about, and like how much people would want it now, you know?
oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times the companies just didn't return the art. It wasn't that the
Right.
artists really didn't keep it. It was that the companies, they didn't return comic book art either for the longest time. Not until
Yeah, would the artists want them? Would the artists have wanted them back? Could they reuse
I
them?
think,
They
well,
already have a garage full.
I don't know if there was a resale market for it or not, but some artists wanted things back, some didn't. I think it was a different mindset. Because they weren't thinking I'm making great art. It's like you're making so many drawings.
Right. Right.
That but the mindset of the companies was that the companies owned everything. And that, they didn't return the original art. They gave it to families or friends or threw it away or whatever. And that carried over into comics until like the late 60s and 70s, when the late Neil Adams started to advocate for the return of original artwork and got a lot of people's artwork back for them. He also fought for the rights of Siegel and Schuster to get a small piece of Superman. To create Superman, but
And it would take somebody like Adams with that kind of stature to go to the higher ups, which weren't that much higher than him then, right then, and say that, this is the new deal. A young artist demanding that, they'd say, look, there's 20 people waiting in line who could do it on AI cheaper than you, but will want to use real art, yada, yada.
right.
It's just, real supply and demand thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, the idea of ownership and stuff. That's how companies ended up owning, all these properties that
Yeah.
probably shouldn't own. But
So there was a, not to bore you with it, as we're talking about return of original art and such. There was an obit this week for a pretty darn prominent art director, brief career, but really prominent. John, you ever do any work for Warner Paperbacks? Warner Paper, the art director Eugene Light,
No,
ever cross? No,
never worked.
he was an art director at Warner Paperbacks 3 years. For 10 years, he commissioned 3,000 covers. So that's
Wow.
300 a year. That's 6 a week, year round.
wow.
For 10 years. You can imagine how often he actually talked to an artist or said, hey, I just read this book about this shark in this town up. No. They just said, here's a title. It's got a fish in it. I know somebody can do a fish, bang, off it goes. The original art is delivered. The original art is used for the cover. Now what do I do? Gene Light says to his staff, says, I got 60 of these, and there's 60 more coming in tomorrow. They all went to a warehouse over on the west side. He calls up one day and says, I'm leaving Warner Books. They're selling the warehouse over on the Hudson River. If you want any paperback art, come and get it. You got 10 minutes.
What?
Well, I got a cab driver to drive faster than they probably should have. We got there. We're pulling off the rack these covers, most of them unidentified. Occasionally we'd see a Mitchell Hooks, got to have that. We'd see a names we knew, a Tom Lovell. We just grabbed what we could, probably grab 20. And this is, we got to go now. So we left with these 20 covers, but it had no value. The building got torn down with the art in it. And
Oh my gosh.
3,000 pieces of art didn't matter to anybody because they'd already been used and paid for. I bet some of them were pretty damn good.
Wow. That's crazy.
Consider it is crazy, but it's ancient history now because we're not saving cellulose and oil-based pigment. We're saving ones and twos in a certain order that makes a digital file. So Where's the difference? Oh, Brown's getting in trouble now.
I mean that's true though. Like I think that there is something to be said about how are we archiving digital work now beyond just the piece that was published. Like, what if their computer crashes? Is it saved? Is it lost? Like, I mean, archiving right now, I'm curious to know, like, do archivists try to see if they can get a digital file so it's remembered, or?
Well, everything, I used to back everything up on CD, and then, well, CDs don't last. So then back it up on a hard drive, an external. Well, that also doesn't last. So
I used to study this quite a bit because I had to do it to work with certain companies. There are systems for backing up that are like pretty flawless, and they have to be multiple drives, multiple locations, and there's like whole systems for it. I mean, Cassandra, it probably just depends on the person and the organization. They accidentally recorded over the original moon landing footage, so like nothing is protected.
Well, and that's what I mean. Like, there
Like,
is so much
yeah,
amazing digital work now.
yeah, it's like things are lost all the time, but that is true. They accidentally recorded over the original moon landing footage. The original footage does not exist anymore.
for what? The original footage for what?
The
The
moon
moon-
landing.
The original broadcast footage does not exist anymore.
That's wild.
And so it depends on the RAID system that they're using to archive stuff. But there's whole systems, and you can look it up. Like I was required, I can't remember even what it was called, but the company I worked with, like they required that all editors were working on this specific system, and you kind of had to learn what that requirement was. And the weeds of it was you had to have 2 RAID systems, which is a hard drive that has and I'll butcher what it actually is, but it's like multiple hard drives to dumb it down in a box. So if one of those hard drives fails, it doesn't delete everything. You can just swap out the hard drive. So you had to have 2 RAID systems, and then you had to have a weekly drive that went to a second location. So like if your building flooded or something like that. And then I've worked with edit houses that, Bill, like you were saying, hard drives fail. So if you're doing a shoot with Nike, there is not nobody cares if your hard drives fail and there's a freak deal if they sue you, like in the middle of a shoot. So a lot of times people like the data coverage of that is so in depth that once the project is finished, they actually they convert those digital copies to actual tape, because tape has a longer life
Yeah, I've heard that before.
than a hard drive. So they convert it to tape and then archive it.
Well, and it's not just like, how are we preserving art? I mean, everyone's taking pictures on their phones, and that's digital. They're not as much things printed off. So, is Library of Congress saving things going on Facebook or Instagram because it's showing like casual everyday life? I mean, it's just, I'm just curious how all of it is being thought of now.
So Timmy, last year, I asked you questions that you brought up all this technology. Is that part and parcel of a photographer's cost of doing business? And does that apply to an artist as well? They should have this equipment?
I don't know. That's a good question. For me, it was a liability, and I couldn't work with certain people without having a certain level of security. And I wanted to work with big brands when I was editing, and there was just an expectation, even if it wasn't part of the contracts. There directors that I would work with, and they knew what was going on with me. Like they wanted, they wanted to stop by, and if they stopped by your studio and they just saw you were working off of a hard drive, like an external hard drive, you just didn't look professional. And so, but for like a artist, I don't know. I mean, like what I just described as of like 5 years ago, I mean, you're talking about like $3,500, $4,000 in equipment. So like, I don't think that that's reasonable for, that doesn't make any sense for like an illustrator or artist. Like there's no need for it, but a backup system that, is reliable, and, I don't know. I mean, depends on your level of risk that you're comfortable with,
Yeah.
because like I believe, like, I do like minimum three drives on everything and duplicate on a weekly basis, but some people would say that is overkill. But what I will say is I've never been, and I say this confidently, I have never been the person to be like, and I lost everything. I don't even need to knock on wood for that. Like, because I just do the homework,
Yeah.
The people that lose everything are the ones that don't, so that's what I would tell somebody, it's tough.
And I've backed up everything in multiple ways, and you still lose stuff. Systems fail. Both the hard drive and both the external hard drive fails, the CD system fails, the second hard drive.
If anybody's concerned about hard drives failing, I would recommend a RAID system. There are some of them that are cheaper, but it's only something that I would recommend to somebody that really feels like it's important, and that they're avoiding a liability, like of working with a major client where like you cannot afford to have like a hard drive failing could be like a career altering error,
Is RAID very expensive? Is that why?
See, that's hard, because like to say it's expensive, it's like you're gonna spend more than $1,000, but it's like, if it's the thing that saves your career, is that expensive for what it does?
Right.
For what I did, like when I bought it, I remembered, Cassandra, I remembered not thinking it was expensive at all. It was like the cost of doing business, and I was like, I just got to do it, and it was like amazing. The cloud, Alana just mentioned the cloud, or Elena just mentioned the cloud, like that's part of it. You become more susceptible to ransomware attacks with that. So, or I believe, I've been told that you can be. I'm not like an IT security person, but you get a RAID system, and that is a pretty effective way of securing your stuff, because for a RAID system to fail, you have to have multiple hard drives fail at the same time. So it becomes way less likely. Like Bill, you were saying, like you had a hard drive fail. Like a RAID system is a lot more, a much more substantial system for recovery. Like I had a hard drive fail. I had a hard drive fail on my RAID system this week. I just had to go buy a hard drive and I just inserted it, and nothing lost. Had it been,
if you want to run a business like a photographer or a professional artist, whatever market you're serving, there are some costs for keeping your office alive, and that's one of them. But I think part of it also is like I can't afford the $5,000 service. I can maybe afford a couple $100 for a hard drive, but it's that concept, the thought that, all right, I've done this nice piece. How am I going to save it? Even if it's just a snapshot on your phone, it's really important to save the physicality of the art before it goes off to the end user, who then might change something that you wouldn't have wanted, or added an element that you wouldn't have wanted. And that way you can protect yourself. But it's just thinking about it. If I'm going to be a professional artist, I need to say what it is that I make.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's been a consideration for me since I don't know, 1991 or so, when I started working digitally, or started delivering things digitally. Terry, do you remember SideQuest discs?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my Lord.
Absolutely. I remember them
Neither-
well.
The SideQuest discs, those things were clunky. And then there were the,
They came with a wheelbarrow.
what was the smaller version of that?
Everybody, this is the 2-minute warning on this pose, by the way.
There was a smaller version of that
There-
too, that replaced
I
those.
remember that. It was a big deal because you could replace it was like the difference between an 8-track and a cassette player.
Absolutely. And
We just lost half the crowd. A what?
a what? No what? Speaking of cassettes, my cassettes have outlasted my CDs in my music.
I love that we could have somebody ask a technology question and it devolved to cassettes. You guys within like 3 minutes.
But that's tape. That's magnetic tape, which
But Tim,
I
we were
understand.
getting back to getting back to the art relationship of this. If you did an album cover, which is the old vinyl thing that they used to put on the turntable, did a piece of art for that, and magically they turned that music into an 8-track, the art went with it. Then it became a cassette. Oh, the art went with it again, and then a box CD. The art went with it again. No rights were signed off on that. It was just the word, I think Billion mentioned. It's assumed by the company they owned all those rights.
right.
Yeah.
I remember I saw Von Oliver talk, the 4AD designer, and he hated CDs because he went from having a 12-inch canvas to having a 4-inch canvas, and dealing with things in a different way. But yeah.
Well, all right, everybody, we're moving on to the third and final pose. Please post your work to Instagram with hashtag illustration isolation and at visual arts passage. This last pose is Serena Williams. You can pick from either of them. So there are 2 options, option A and option B. One is a bit more posed, and then the other is kind of Serena's like classic winning fist pump. So, all right.
I feel like I barely dented this one.
I think an artist is better off investing in like, I don't know. I don't think that like archival, like I don't think that you should be putting that much money into your archiving technique. I think you get a couple hard drives and look up how to clone backups in your set.
You can also hire a service.
I wouldn't do that, but
What's that?
I would not trust a third party with all of your data. I would
Oh,
recommend that, but yeah, you could do that.
Well, it comes down to, Timmy, it's like, would I trust a third party or would I trust myself?
That is a very
Well,
good question, John.
You know what, John, I will say this. If you're at a stage in your life where you're unwilling to move forward with technology, then I guess you do have to bite the bullet, be susceptible to the wolves of the world. But anybody my age or younger, I would really recommend, this is going to be an important part of your life. You should learn to understand it.
I agree with that.
It's worth it. It's worth it. And your data, our data, everyone's data has become the most valuable asset in the world. It's more valuable than oil.
but
So
everybody
you
that
can
uses
protect it.
everybody that uses the cloud or Google Drive, that's a third party.
Well, but you're talking about services for backing up all of it. That's a tool to back something up. I'm just saying, don't rely entirely on a
Oh no,
third-party service to back up your information for you.
I just think that it's I remember years ago that the solution that was offered was to put everything on a CD and put those CDs in a safety deposit box.
Right.
Okay,
You
yeah,
know.
that's predated. I mean,
And here's the thing, I mean, the solutions are gonna keep changing. And if you want your artwork cataloged and archived, whether you're a painter or an illustrator or whatever, you know, it behooves you to keep up on what's the latest thing.
I like that you use the word behooves. I don't hear that enough.
yeah. Yeah, no, if you're talking about cloud backup, Bill, that's exclusively cloud backup is not a good strategy.
Oh, no, not at all, but
Yeah.
I just think of all the people that use that.
Yeah.
You know, there's a belief that that's a stable.
Right. I mean, isn't like most people's password like password, but I don't know that makes it. Okay, it's not. I don't know
It's password, but it's with capital P. And
Yeah,
the O in
yeah.
the word is actually the number 0, because you have to have
And
a
an
capital.
exclamation mark. Come on.
So
Right.
Terry, since I said that now on this show, you're gonna have to change it. Okay. Promise me you're gonna change it after this episode.
The password is.
The password is password.
Terry's slick. His is TB password.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
He's got everybody fooled, man. He knows.
Yeah.
I have so many passwords, I can't remember them all. Just
The one thing I will say about security is your social, man, if you don't have two-factor authentication set up, do it. Do it immediately.
Right.
You can't do it fast enough. It's just oof, it's terrible. I've seen so many artists go through that. They lose their accounts, and what's worse is like a lot of them don't even, it's not that they just lose their account, but those accounts are then leveraged to like run scams, and it's just a nightmare. I mean, yeah, two-factor authentication, don't underestimate it.
Wow. You guys sound extra smart today talking all this techie stuff.
No.
He's learned a lot working with me, Cassandra.
Yeah.
What did you say, John?
He really has learned a lot working with me. He's picking up.
Yeah,
You're his Obi-Wan.
Somebody just mentioned UV keys in the chat, which is like, yeah, like I'd be able to do that with John. UV keys are the USB drives that you have to enter. I know that. And then he said easy. Yeah, try. Sam, I'll have you come intern at VAP for a week. You could show John how to use a UV key. Yeah.
Zip drives, that's what it was.
You got it.
Zip drive.
I did really love that. Did you watch the Ron Howard documentary series, Cassandra? That was all about like internet.
No, I want to.
I can't, whatever. It was like the web the web. It was a good name.
I heard him talk about it on Armchair Expert. I wanted to watch it. I just haven't gotten to it yet.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's really interesting. It's an illustration isolation rec. Any recommendations? Anybody got a good recommendation?
Well, I just started listening to that criminal podcast, like I was
Criminal
talking about
podcast?
earlier.
Oh, and that's artist themed. What was the?
So that
Yeah.
episode was artist themed. It's called Criminal. And there was a whole episode about, and I'm like embarrassed I didn't know this story about Kit Williams. Terry, you could probably talk about Kit Williams' book, Masquerade.
Oh, I know that book.
Yeah.
Not a bell.
So
That's what
it was
Golden-
published in 1979. He spent 3 years creating it. And he thought it would be fun to not only make it a book that you could read, but also include a puzzle that would be a treasure hunt. And he created a like golden hair and a special like ceramic box to have it in, and he buried it. And so hidden in the book was a puzzle to be solved. And if you solved it, it would tell you where to find the treasure. And it went global. And everyone had to write him if they thought they had a solution. And he was getting like 200 letters a day from everywhere, just trying to solve it. And it was just a fascinating story. I loved it. And the book looks wonderful. I'm embarrassed I didn't know this story, but it was a wonderful like adventure. And the podcast host is like interviewing people that were there for it. Yeah, that was the treasure. Timmy doesn't like it, but it's still gold and worth money.
I just think it would be so funny if I had solved it and everything, and then the creator is so excited to unveil it, and you're just kind of like, oh, huh.
I think it's cool because it matches his illustrations, which are really wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that shtick made that book super popular.
Yeah, it was amazing for marketing. So like Timmy was like, everybody should be doing this. Like this should be a thing. Because yeah, who doesn't love a treasure hunt? And it was kind of like, I mean, if it went crazy in 1979 and 1980, like I can only imagine if people had the internet, like what people would do with it.
Like every once in a while, and I'm not ignoring the fact that like every once in a while there is a treasure hunt like thing. And I know that there's like geocaching and there are all these things, but I would just love like if an artist was just like, I make these beautiful maps and once a month I hide like a $5,000 brooch.
Well, it was wild because like it was a complicated puzzle that was open to anybody from like there was no special math needed or anything. Like he said, he thought a 10-year-old could solve it as well as a grown adult, and it took people forever to figure it out. And it took two physics teachers to actually solve it, but they weren't the ones who found the treasure.
You know what the problem was that they solved?
Yeah, because there's like a code in it that you have to find. And to solve the code, then it gives you directions to where it's buried.
Yeah. It's like what everybody did before Wordle.
Yeah, and he got so tired of people sending him letters and not having it that he like made a special illustration with a clue in it and released it to the publishers released it to give people a clue because people hadn't found it yet. It's a wild story.
But yeah, it's a very, very clever story and a clever idea by the artist. I would imagine it was a hard sell to the publisher. And there may be other tricks like that people came up with that didn't work out. It's great to hear the stories that do, because hopefully that gets people thinking, well, what can I add to this project, this illustration, this book, that the publisher can market even better.
Yeah,
That's a good story.
I think it's a zero cost, especially, I mean,
Yeah, zero, right.
It technically has a potential zero cost because it like really only works if like the riddle or the puzzle is so complicated, it's not solved like quickly. And that's the thing that would be hard with the internet. It would be really difficult to create a puzzle that couldn't be like solved by internet sleuths like within
Yeah.
well, this one took a lot. I think it took over a year for someone to finally solve it.
Yeah.
Well, what year was that?
I think it was like 1980 or 1981, somewhere in there, because it was published in 1979.
It was pre-internet.
Yeah, that was before. No, it was not only was it pre-internet, it was like if you had an idea, or a note, or you're like, "Ooh, I got to remember this for the puzzle," you'd be like, "Somebody gave me a pen."
Right.
But it's got to be kind of a publisher's dream, because the book is already a book and it stands on its own. It just happens to also have like a treasure hunt in it. I feel like that would be a dream for a publisher.
Yeah, I would be surprised if nobody's like duplicating it on a smaller level, but because I've heard of like, you know, the crazy guy that hides the gold, and there was another good treasure hunt riddle that got solved a couple years ago. But this is a business opportunity. I think it's
Yeah.
I think that we could do something with this.
He definitely thought outside the box, and I was really impressed by that. And I also, like, after hearing what the puzzle was, of like solving it to find the directions, I would have never figured it out.
Really?
Yeah,
Well,
I'm not good. I'm not
sometimes-
good that way.
Sometimes with those artist tricks, it's not that it's in the box, it's that you can't even see the box because you're in another city. Think of
yeah.
Al Hirschfeld. You mentioned Al Hirschfeld. He was in Philadelphia doing drawings for a Broadway show that was going to be in the New York newspaper the following week. So he had to see it on the road in rehearsals. He wasn't there for his daughter being born, so he put her name in the background of somebody's hair. Her name was Nina, Nina.
Yes.
Imagine you doing a black and white drawing. You can put Nina hidden in the hair pretty well. The next week he put in 2. The next week he put in 3. It started to catch on among the readers. Hey, did you see this? The 4th week he did 1 a week. He didn't put in any. And the Times got letters saying, so where are the Ninas? How many? So he started putting them back in, and then he had to put a number to tell people where they were. So I know that the answer to or how many there were, the answer to the masquerade is where's this thing hidden? But it's one question, one answer. That's an artist's dream, like you said.
When I was a little kid, I was probably like 8. We were out in the middle of nowhere, Missouri, John, like out by the ranch, and I was with my dad. We were out in the woods, like miles from anything, and we found there was just a little like headstone, just a tiny little headstone in the middle of the woods. And my dad was I mean, he was like, this is Jesse James, like this is the missing Jesse James burial site. He was so positive. He was like, it's got to be because it was rumored that was the area where he was buried and everything. And so he got me and my brothers and gave us all shovels. And now looking back on this, you're like, God, my dad was crazy.
Yeah, right.
And he was just like, I'm gonna have my kids, who the oldest one is like 9. They're gonna go dig up Jesse James's grave.
It's pretty dark. Again,
Yeah,
this
really
like
dark. I don't think anybody, Cassandra, thought about, well, first of all, they overestimated the digging power of 9-year-olds. And also nobody thought it all through, you know?
like maybe that's not appropriate.
Maybe there's not a good way that this ends. I guess we're just hoping that the treasure is on top of we're just
It's
hoping
a grave either way.
yeah, we're just hoping that the treasure is on top of Jesse James, you know? Yeah. So no, we didn't get very deep. We were a pretty whiny kid. So I think he gave up on us.
I think this continues to also support your point when like people are like, oh, your dad was just the nicest guy in the world. And you're like, he tried to have me dig up Jesse James's grave
Right.
as a child.
Yeah.
Or just like, or, you know, the reality of it is, it's probably just like a random person's grave.
Right.
Like, it probably wasn't Jesse James.
Yeah, it feels like it's either way, the answer is dark.
Well, but you know what? It was very fun pretending that we were digging up a treasure.
Yeah, you think your dad didn't know that?
What a great story,
He
though.
was-
I mean,
John,
love
it
that.
was not, you know, my dad, we were not playing pretend.
Very Stranger Things kind of dark there, Timmy. Let's give them.
I love it. It makes for a very magical childhood that is, you know, that's truly unique.
Magical or very dark.
Well, we didn't,
Isn't it both? I think it's both. It can be both.
We'll be both. Yeah.
there were a lot of roots. That was what really threw it all off. So it was a job for grown men. Yeah.
I guess there's so much potential for things to go wrong,
Yeah.
but giving kids shovels and taking them out to,
Yeah. So Cassandra, your rec was, what's it called again? Criminal, the podcast? Oh, you just, yeah. She's doing her hair.
She can't hear you because
I know.
Yeah.
The-
She
what,
fixing
was
her
the rec,
hearing.
what was the rec, Cassandra? It was criminal, and the podcast episode was about who?
Yeah, sorry. The podcast was Criminal, and the episode is titled Masquerade, and that's the name of the book by Kit Williams.
yeah.
Anybody else have any art recs? Any art related recs for listeners?
Come on, we got it.
You got
Well,
it.
I know Gary Kelly's doing a talk coming up at the Society of Illustrators, isn't he?
Yeah, I thought that was yesterday,
September.
or maybe it's a Wednesday of this month sometime.
Coming up in September in a couple weeks.
Okay,
Yeah.
about his new book.
Yeah.
So look into Gary Kelly. That's a rec. Gary Kelly as an artist.
That's a rec that goes.
Yeah.
Just look at everything the guy did. He was one of the most brilliant artists, or is one of the most brilliant artists that ever worked.
Yeah.
Interesting shapes.
I have a rec. I just started watching Keith Knight's because I had it was crazy. I was working at the coffee shop a couple of days ago, and I get a call from a random number. And you get calls from random numbers. It's not from the school either. You kind of like, okay, spam call. What do you want? But I'm always polite, and I'm so glad I was, because the guy was like, "Hi, this is Keith Knight." And Keith Knight, the incredible cartoonist, and we're lucky to have him joining us next semester as a guest speaker. But I started watching his show on Hulu, Woke, and it's so good. I really love it. I've only watched a couple episodes, but I highly recommend it. It's in its second season, so.
Yeah. I watched the first episode and it was fantastic. It was just in the midst of like
Yeah,
a bunch of stuff, so I hadn't gotten back to it.
yeah. I would say trigger warning. Look into it before you watch it. Some of the topics are pretty sensitive, but it is really good, and I think very tastefully done. So. Anybody reading? You guys read books?
Yeah.
Yes.
What's everybody reading? I'll start. I've been reading a book called 5 Days of Memorial. Has anybody heard of it?
Mm-mm.
oh yeah.
It's about the 5 days at this hospital, Memorial Hospital.
Oh, they just made that on a show into a show on Apple.
Yeah, I saw that it's a show, and so I was like, I'm gonna watch the show. I started reading the book before I was gonna watch the show, because that's my new rule I told you about.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to start a book every time I watch a show. But I highly recommend it. It's really a hard read. It's like talk about grim. It's very grim story though. So, but it is pretty amazing. I talk with my mom every day, and I think maybe 5 to 10 minutes of our conversation is always dedicated to like hurricane talks. So I'm pretty fascinated by hurricanes, honestly. Not like in a good way. But
Have you read Isaac's Storm?
Time of the year, right?
What's that?
It's hurricane season. It's your time of the year.
It is. I don't like enjoy them. I just
It's fascinating. Yeah.
fascinated by them.
Did you ever read Isaac's Storm?
No.
Oh, that's so good. It's by Eric Larson, who also wrote Devil in the White City, and it's all about the hurricane that hit Galveston in the 1800s.
Really?
Yeah, and it's a crazy discussion of like information that should have been passed along, but people kind of ignored due to ego, and how it affected everything. It's enthralling.
Cassandra, I read that book.
It's good, right?
I read it because I was fascinated, about that happening to Galveston. The people going out. I mean, literally, they went out to watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sit on the shorelines. Oh my gosh.
It's wild. Well, and I'm a huge Eric Larson fan. I think that that man has such a gift for taking stories of history and, it's nonfiction and it reads like a mystery. Like Devil in the White City is one of my favorite books.
Yeah, I started that recently. I need to finish it.
Phenomenal.
This is the 10-minute warning. Somebody asked the question, how do you guys deal with burnout during the session? Something say that we're burning out, everybody? No, they said, usually at this point in the session, I cannot see the shapes anymore. So like, how do you deal with how do you find the shape after you, does that mean you've overworked it? What does that mean when you can't find the shape after working on it for a while?
The great part about this is for fun. So you can either, if you just feel like you're not finding the shapes and you're not interested in finding the shapes, draw something else. Like the great part about this is you're not on deadline. You can choose to keep going, or you can move on to something else and just let it stay fun.
Yeah, I try to let it it's going to evolve and be what it's going to be, and not get too caught up in, I've made so many bad drawings that I just let it go.
You say they're bad, and those of us who can't draw look at it and are amazed. I would have to imagine, Bill, even if you look at something and say this is a bad drawing, you still know, yeah, but I got her chin right.
Mhm.
Or that ear, I aced that ear, the rest of it sucked, I aced that ear. That must be a learning experience or a satisfying experience that, even in a bad drawing, there's some part of it that you did well.
Well, so I'm wearing my glasses. I can't find my regular glasses, so I'm wearing a pair of readers that I bought that distorted a little bit, which is not a really good excuse or whatever. But this drawing to me does not look like her, and so at a certain point I let that go, and I just tried to make some areas of interest that had sort of an emotional content, like right in here in her face, whether it was accurate or not, because it seemed like the more accurate I made it, the less effective it was. And I got rid of her fist because I didn't really like the way that was coming in. So I just tried to focus on the emotional content of it.
I'm going to say something that Bill probably wouldn't say about his own work, but Bill's probably not trying to do, I know this is true. He's probably not trying to do a copy of the photograph. He's trying to do what he believes is a good drawing, an interesting drawing. And so he's taking some swings with his work, and he probably gets, real charged up about certain things that at somebody, when somebody's trying to learn, they get really excited that they can mimic something or make a copy of something.
Yeah. That's
not the chase Bill's on.
No, and I put things in the wrong place. Thank you. I appreciate that. I put things in the wrong, like this ear on this is Rafael Nadal.
Yeah.
On Nadal, like I noticed part of the way through the drawing that it was too low. And I'm like, okay, so the head's off, the ear's off. I moved the ear. It's still not in the right place. But I try to look at it in the overall scheme of things in the drawing, and does it carry the emotion of what this guy's doing, and then there are other times when I really do want to make a drawing that looks like the person, and sometimes I hit that. Last week I certainly couldn't, so I just keep going. I don't know.
Well, I think that what the individual was asking about, staying focused for a long time.
Yeah.
We've spent, all of us in here drawing have spent a huge amount of time doing this.
Yeah.
And staying on track, doing a 2-hour drawing session. I mean, this is my second, Cassandra and I, this is our second time we've done this today. But the stretches that we've probably spent sitting in our drawing boards for 7 and 8 hours in a row, it's like anything else. It's you get hardened to it. You know, yes. How does somebody do that? They practice, and it's not just, you know, that's the stamina part of it too. So practice, I guess, just keep working, and that part will get, you'll be able to keep focus and do that for longer periods of time.
Yeah. You build the endurance.
And like, I marvel at what other people do. Like, I'm watching John draw right now, and I'm marveling at the sort of delicacy and the accuracy and the shape, the understanding of shape in there. And so the worst thing I could do to myself is compare where I'm at to where John's at, because we're different people. We have different strengths. I love what he does. I love what Cassandra does. But I try to learn from it, you know, and
That's where you and I differ, Bill, because I don't really care for Cassandra's work very much.
Awesome.
I love to be able to joke with her because she can take it, and she
I
can.
love it. I love it.
That's hilarious.
I love it. I'll give her $30 million and I'll throw in a building.
Throw away the building.
Yeah, exactly.
That would
If
be,
I
that
put
would
the
be
goat on a
Banksy.
building, can I get 10 more million?
Yeah, Terry, that would be a Banksy move. He'd buy the building and then burn it down.
For the insurance.
Shredder at the bottom of the thing.
Yeah, he puts a shredder at the bottom of the building. Yeah.
I did see, it wasn't Exit Through the Gift Shop, it was a different Banksy documentary, but they were showing an auction that was auctioning off Banksy's, and like there was cement walls that were like being shown that they were cut out.
Yeah, I believe that. Having looked at this one, definitely a larger scale than what I've seen before. Not to say that it wouldn't be possible, especially for something that valuable, you know, like I could see like a major museum purchasing it and having the whole wall removed, you know. But it would be like a massive, like not many room, you know, it would be huge. It'd be really big, it looked like. But yeah, it would be funny if he was like, you know, the last time we did the shredder, this time the thing is the building's foundation is actually terrible, and you're gonna have to, it's gonna cost you a fortune.
Or like the building gets knocked down so they could get
Yeah,
that
no,
wall.
it's gonna be like, this building's got terrible bones. We're coming up on 2 minutes for this final post, so everybody get your finishing touches in. The panelists are going to keep drawing for a few minutes, but get your finishing touches in before you have to post. So
Really amazing, gang. As always, I appreciate your letting me hang out, and I hope you see you down there. Tim, thanks a lot for letting me into the window. This time.
have you back. I hope
Anytime, Terry.
Thanks, Terry. It's always fun chatting with you.
Good talking. Terry.
It's a pleasure with you guys. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
So John, I wanted to tell you about the 2023 Visual Arts Passage marketing strategy. Instead of ads, I put all of our money into a little gold necklace.
There's a treasure hunt.
And we're gonna hide it. And the school is gonna be booming. Yeah. Oh man, that is a hard sell. That is a hard sell. It sounds genius until you gotta sell it.
You know what people would be super competitive about? Being the ones that get to design the necklace.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, yeah, I could see that.
I wish it hadn't been found. I like the idea of something still being out there.
Yeah, kind of a DB Cooper situation.
Well, the
Right.
guy who found the necklace cheated.
Yeah.
I heard different stories about that. I heard one story somebody cheated. I heard another story that somebody's dog dug it up.
Oh no, he straight up cheated. He like hit the Kit Williams ex-girlfriend was with him when he was admiring the spot and marked it with a magnet. And she told this other guy. And so the other guy, when he like pretended like he solved it, and then he went and just dug a bunch around the area and found it that way, and then tried to stay anonymous so that it couldn't be traced back to him that he knew the ex-girlfriend.
That still is a brilliant way to cheat.
He's a cheater.
Yeah, I like a Bill, I agree. I like a DB Cooper-esque.
Never, becomes urban legend.
God, it was so fun. John, on 39th Street, have you ever seen that bar, DB Cooper's?
Uh-huh.
Oh, by the way, everybody, this is the end of the post, so please start posting your work to Instagram in the caption, illustration isolation, and @ visual arts passage. Please start posting now. We're going to keep drawing on the panel for a few more minutes, but please post. Don't wait. We're not doing any refreshes. So, no, John, so on 39th Street, there's this bar called DB Cooper's. This was Gianna and I's like first or second date, and we are we are going to a bar, and across the street there's like you see the front of this bar, it says DB Cooper's, and it's a fun like dive bar. And I was like, we're just trying to have small talk because it's like an early date, and I'm like, the DB Cooper story, that's a crazy, like, that's an amazing mystery.
Mhm.
And he did not know it. And
What?
so I was like, so it was really fun. I get to tell Gianna. It was a great date scenario where you're like, oh, I get to share this really incredible story. And for anybody who doesn't know, which I'm sure most people do know, DB Cooper like hijacked a plane with a bunch of money, like these are the footnotes, and jumped out of the plane with a parachute, like somewhere over Washington, and nothing was ever found, like a bunch of money. And so
Washington State, not Washington, D.C.
You're right. Yeah, you parachuted over the Capitol, and no. Some say he's a politician today. No, it was Washington State, and I was telling her a little story, and she's just like really glued to the story, and I was like, yeah, and so nobody ever found him, and she just pauses for a long time, and she goes, but when did he open up the bar? And I was like,
Timmy's next words are, will you marry me?
yeah. I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, when did he open up? And then she knew, she heard it. She realized how dumb of a question it was.
But also really adorable.
Yeah, I was like, he didn't open up the bar, Gianna. Yeah, no. So yeah, and then I married her.
Netflix had a documentary on DB Cooper, but I gotta tell you, like, it's such a fascinating story, and the documentary was boring.
See, I like the movie with Treat Williams.
I've seen that several times.
Yeah,
Oh, I've
that
never seen that.
Robert Duvall and Treat Williams, and
Really?
But it is a wonderful story.
Yeah. When I was in college, because I went to school in Portland, the DB Cooper-esque story of the day was this kid named he was called the Barefoot Bandit. Do you guys remember that at all?
Man,
That
keep
sounds
talking.
familiar,
It
yeah.
Sounds familiar. Keep talking.
It would have been like 2008 to 2010-ish.
Oh, yeah. I totally remember this. Yes.
And this kid, and he was a child, like really young. I think
He was like 16.
I think younger, Cassandra.
Well, he started younger.
Yeah, and I believe pretty much raised by the state, I think.
Yeah.
I haven't like seen like an in-depth coverage of it, so I don't really know the full story. I just remember it happening in real time.
There's a podcast about it too, but sorry. Go on.
Really, so there's probably better details you can get from a podcast, but he would break into homes. He would often be barefoot. They would find like wet footprints, hence the Barefoot Bandit. And then he started watching like playing like flight simulators, and he started like stealing planes. And he was like 15, and he was like I remember, because this is like early social media, like 2008, and he got like a Facebook account and made a Facebook page, and it was just like he would just like post. It was like a real like
It was like a fan page.
it was like a fan page for like a bandit that was like
Yeah.
online. And it was before like they didn't know how to track you as well with social media then. And so everybody was just like, they were like, he's posting where he is, like in the forest. Like everybody knew he was in Forest Park in Portland for a while, but they just
He was always on this island in Washington State too.
So that's a wreck. Just read about the Barefoot Bandit.
Well, and I mean, he really just sounded like he needed some parental figures, not to sound like a mom here, but he really did. I mean, when they captured him, he just,
Come
I
on, he
mean,
on a cigarette boat like in the Bahamas. It was
yeah,
the coolest thing ever, Cassandra.
he just sounded like such a little kid.
He was like, yeah, I mean, I think the truly the tragic thing about it was, I do know part of his punishment was that he lost the rights to tell his story for money,
Yeah.
which I thought was a really cruel thing.
Well, especially since he could have used that money from like telling a story to pay, because he also has to pay back all the damage.
Right.
And he's been working hard to do
I mean,
that.
I don't believe that anybody should like be rewarded for what he went through, but it's hard for me not to feel bad. I feel bad for people all the time. So. And
Yeah, I felt bad for him. It just seemed like he
Okay. Yeah.
That's
he
an
needed some
interesting,
good
I love,
support.
Cassandra, I love your response. He just needed a parental figure.
I'm just imagining.
Him and Ted Bundy, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, no, that guy. Oh my gosh.
Cassandra, 1 week of parenting the Barefoot Bandit, you'd be like, get me out of here.
This guy is crazy. He's crazy.
He's unhinged. He's stealing my car.
Well, I mean, they were telling stories about just
Yeah.
kind of stuff he was doing in elementary school that was like a cry for help.
Oh, yeah. It reminded me very much of Catch Me If You Can.
Yeah, that's
And
exactly what it made me think of.
And I love people that like it's often very tragic. There's like very tragic things that happen. They often hurt people when they're doing these things, either like financially or emotionally or like actually physically, like there are victims to those stories.
Hmm.
But like Catch Me If You Can, I mean, you can say they're victims to it, but like also like, that was like a hit film and like told an amazing, there's like versions of the story you get to experience. There's a duality to it, right?
Mhm.
And it's nuanced. There's versions of it, but he always reminded me of that story kind of where you're just
That's
like,
exactly what I thought of too.
that person is just that guy's built different, that person is different. Like they handle problems differently, Yeah.
Well, and just
Great story.
crazy smart.
Oh, I remember I read the book about that. I was like, this is forever ago. And some of his scams, like the scams that don't even make it into the movie, are I mean, I get that they're scams, but they're genius. Like one scam was he would go to ATMs and they used to have like a little plastic cover that would drop down, and it used to not be. Now, if you ever see it, it's see-through. The plastic cover, like that guards the money.
Mhm.
You can see through it. So if cash comes in, you can see the money. So he would just go around with super glue and he would just glue that plastic thing down. And so people would go withdraw cash and then they would reach down and it was like locked. And so they'd be like, this ATM is broken. They would leave. And at the end of the day, he would just go and break these covers off. And they would see everybody's money from the entire day that had been trying to withdraw from these ATMs was there. And you're like, come on, I know it's stealing, but that's like
That's pretty smart.
That's pretty like survival instincts, like figure it out, you know.
What's so smart about it is it's just so simple.
It's so simple. Also, I mean, I don't know. Some of these people like grow up in scenarios where, you know, they have to really figure those things out on their own. And the Barefoot Bandit is a great example,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, I'm just waiting for somebody to be like, you're glorifying.
It's kind
Or
of,
not. Like he's a smart kid. It's a sad story.
Seriously,
Time
I'm
in
just
jail.
staring. I'm just staring at the chat right now, waiting for somebody to say something. No, everybody, John, whenever you're ready, I think we could slowly move to Instagram. But man, anybody have any closing questions about drawing or art? Anything? Yeah, any art recommendations, guys? Any artists that you think illustration isolationists, we shouldn't call them that, illustration isolation people should check out this week?
Kit Williams.
Williams.
Williams is a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm having a lot of fun drawing.
That is such a beautiful drawing.
Yes.
Good job, John.
I've been a mess.
It does not look like a mess. Looks
Again,
gorgeous.
there's different definitions of mess.
Well, this one I like.
That one looks amazing.
Timmy, I'll go there as soon as I just put this chin in, and I'll feel like.
Everybody, you have till the chin is in.
As a non-illustrator, I have no idea how much time that's gonna take.
That's I'm almost there.
I don't think that I could give an estimate on a chin. Believe it or not. Yeah.
Xander wants us to chat about the AI program.
This is Xander. I will give a recommend because I don't think we can crack open AI right now at the end of the night, but I will give a recommendation. Go to Instagram, follow Yuval Noah Harari. I'll type it in the chat, and he gives a really interesting conversation about how people react to AI, why fear becomes part of it. People are afraid of being replaced. Happiness, a lot of happiness comes from purpose, and there's always a fear that AI is going to replace your purpose. Oftentimes that's just not the case. People have the ability to find purpose in a lot of things. So I would not be scared of it, but I also would not underestimate the power of it. But check out Yuval Harari. He's a brilliant genius thinker, I would say. I love his take on that stuff. And he's really on it for a really long
Timmy, I
time.
didn't tell you this, that we had our guest speaker last week, Brian Matyas,
Yeah.
talked about AI a lot. He works for ILM, and he talked about how they used it, and he said that his only hope is where it struggles the most is with design. And he's saying if you want to extend your time period, really study design. I thought that's pretty smart.
There you go. Somebody working at Industrial Light and Magic.
Yeah.
Probably a multi-billion-dollar company right there is talking about it. So yeah.
So it's affecting a lot of things, but the one areas is that it has the least effectiveness right now is design.
Yeah.
Okay, so I am about to share. Are we good?
Oh,
That
cool.
looks great. Wow. That's
Ah.
nice.
What a great start. Yeah, I'm moving things around here so I can see. All right, here we go.
Nice. Oh, that's really cool.
This too. This is annoying to me that I can see my drawing. There we go. Now it's annoying to you that you can see me. All right, so here we go. Oh, very fun. That's pretty a good expressive way to handle that image.
That's great.
Uh-huh.
Very nice. Uh-oh. Nothing there. Here we go.
Ooh, nice.
Very nice. Wow.
Oh, really good.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, nice rat gravy.
Oh, that's so great.
It is.
Really good stuff.
Nice.
Again, it's, different materials, different mediums, obviously, different materials, and, different mindsets that are drawing these things. Wow, that's killer.
Oh, that's awesome. Really good weight on the feet and movement.
A lot of
First
energy.
timer too. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Welcome. That's
Oh,
fun.
Sienna, I love that.
Oh, nice one.
It's good.
Good
Nice.
job, Sally.
Very nice. Whoa,
Cool.
Good job.
I love that.
that's really fun.
I like the
Mhm.
white line around it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Oh, that's fair.
Oh, that's lovely.
Oh, that's so
really
cool.
great.
That's
Awesome.
awesome. That looks like a tennis graphic novel.
It's
Yeah.
like tennis manga, like the lines. I love it.
What type of art do you really? I'm just really into tennis manga right now.
It's very very small part of the industry, but it's got a big upside.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good.
You know exactly who that is by looking at, you'd see that you got the likeness really well.
But then like the way you used the shapes was fantastic.
Well done.
Wow. Yes.
I love it.
Very cool. Nice, Marcy.
Nice, Mercy.
Wow, Peter.
Oh man, you even got the background in. Oh, that's really good.
Peter, way to hang in there, man. You've been drawing with us all day.
Yeah.
That's why you're so good.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's cool.
That's really cool. Nice, Gary.
Oh, that's so nice. That's exceptional.
Really good.
Oh, that's cool.
That's fun.
Yeah. Really nice.
There you go, Jeff.
That's cool.
That's cool. Maybe, Jeff, you need to loosen up a little bit.
I'm shocked to see it in a sketch pad.
That's very cool. Nice drawing.
Oh, good job, Rebecca. Ooh,
Oh, Gary.
excellent as always.
Oh, that's another great one.
Oh,
Wow.
I love that.
That is really nice.
Good job, Felicity.
Oh, that's very cool. Wow.
Nice, Deidre.
Really nice.
Fun.
That is fun.
Tough to, yeah, man, that's hard to do too. Get the overall capture in the line like that.
Oh,
Good job, Nicole. Cool.
Yeah.
just needs a sword.
There's the rice paper. Love
Ooh.
it.
Interesting.
Oh, Leslie, that's cool.
Way to go.
Really nice, Paul.
And you've been on fire all day, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
He's channeling his Bernie Fuchs drawing
Yeah.
and design. It's really nice.
I mean, this morning Paul drew that tennis ball, and it was like,
Yeah,
3D.
it really meant Timmy had to go sit in a room by himself for a while. Meditate, because it really messed with him.
It really bothered me.
Looks like it's coming off the page.
Something wrong with me?
That last piece made me think of like a Wes Anderson characters.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
That's fun.
Mhm.
Sorry, Venus.
Oh, I
that's
love it
fun.
when it gets put all together. Good job.
It's like the most chaotic tennis court ever.
Yes.
You know what? That's very successful, the way that's put together.
Oh, wow.
You know,
Yeah.
I love the hierarchy, you know, the larger Nadal in the front and the way it's handled is very well composed.
Hmm.
Beautiful.
So great.
Nice.
Anna,
Very good.
really good.
Wow, Sally. Good job.
Yeah, another person who's stuck in it all day. Good job, Sally. Oh, that's lovely.
Wow. Again, a lot of different interpretations here.
Oh, that's cool.
Back to the dry eraser here.
That's so cool.
I
Cool.
love that.
Very good.
Whoa.
Peter.
Peter, it just blows me away that you get the background in too. Really nice. Good job. Really great shapes and silhouette.
Peter sent me some images and I sent him traded with him and sent him a drawing of his dog. And I was feeling really guilty sending him this drawing of the dog.
I love that drawing of waffles.
His pieces were so polished and finished, and I had sent him this really crude drawing.
Oh, no, that was a great drawing.
Well, what I got was pretty terrific.
That's cool, Jeff.
The same is true with Devin and people that send me stuff that are just like, oh my God, I gotta make something else to send them. Very cool.
Oh, dang.
That's
Whoa.
pretty
AJ,
that's pretty smoking hot.
gosh.
Oh, that's cool too.
You know, I love about that is it's you know, this is there's action to it, and but
Mhm.
so much action to it. So beautiful. Very nice ball. Oh, nice.
Mhm. Oh, that's cool. I like that one.
I do too. Very good. Cool.
Right wrist fracture to art. Sorry,
No,
I was distracted by the name.
Very good. Really nailed
This
the
is great.
silhouette of that. That's-
Yeah.
Good job.
That's great. I love
That's
that.
good. You did a good
Five-
job.
About 5 or 6 years ago, I did a series of tennis paintings, and man, it's a tough subject. I mean, especially if you're going to do them while they're playing. It's a really tough subject. I mean, we're cheating a little bit because they're kind of posed. This is from this morning.
Nice, Michael. That was good.
Very nice.
It was really good.
Is that the last
Everybody,
one?
just last reminder, this is tomorrow's the last day for early bird sign up for the fall semester. So like I said, we've got some incredible guest speakers. You get to participate in a mentorship. It's an awesome experience. Fall 100. If you have any questions at all, call the school, shoot us an email at hello@Visual Arts Passage. But don't wait, sign up tomorrow. You're gonna save $100. You know what you can do with $100? Buy $100 worth of art supplies.
So true.
No. So do it now. Don't wait. Seriously. Also, John, that way I won't go bald before this semester starts. You all wait. So
I'd like to thank Cassandra and Bill for drawing with me tonight, and I really appreciate it. You're terrific, and thank you, Terry. I know you've already left, but thank you for showing up and talking to us, and everybody that joined us. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
thank you so much, everybody. Have a nice
Thank
night.
you. It's always a joy to hang out with you all.
Fun night, everybody.
Mhm.
Have a great week. We'll see you next week with another topic.
Thanks, Priscilla. See you guys. Thanks, Terry.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.